Gator Dave. How you doing, sir?
I am well, Mike. How about you, man?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. We got Big
Good, good.
12 here to talk about, sir. Big
We
12.
have the Big 12. Good evening, folks. Hope everyone out there is doing well. Remember, we're Bets Utopia, the number one location for all things sports betting. I'm Gator Dave, and that's Miami Mike. We're ready to talk Big 12 this week, man. We do appreciate the response for Big 10 last week, man. I mean, we had nice looks our way. So very excited about that. We appreciate everyone tuning in and checking us out for sure. So we're looking at the big four, the four leagues now, and getting ready for the season. And we do want to remind everyone that we get down to season, we're going to be picking our 12 teams each week, and we've done pretty darn well in the past. So just so everyone knows out there. So just kind of want to give everybody a precursor to that as we roll along here. Live shows on Wednesday nights. This one's not live. Miami Mike is headed to Vegas. We're actually sitting on a Monday night pre-recording the show, and Mike's Mike's heading out west to enjoy himself there in Las Vegas. So we're pre-recorded tonight. And again, looking at the Big 12, we got the four new teams. We got Utah, we got Colorado, we got Arizona, we got Arizona State. Do want to remind everyone, please please subscribe. You know, we can all use all the subscribes we can get out there and notifications. Turn that on if you can, so we pop up when we start the show. If you have trouble finding us, just go in there and Google Bets Utopia Sports Betting, and then boom, we'll be right there. So we look forward to tonight and future weeks to come. And ready to start this thing off, Mike?
Let's get it going. You know how it
All right.
goes.
All right, let's roll. Let's roll. We're going to start at the bottom of the Big 12. And I am going at number 16 with the Houston Cougars. I'm saying they're going to go 3-7. They're only returning 6 players from a team that went 4-8 last year, rough year. Their QB Donovan Smith ranks 13 out of 16 in the Big 12, so not too hot there. Strength of schedule, about average, I'd say, 49th. Um, they do have a new coach, though, right? Willie Fritz comes over from Tulane, taking over from our boy Dana Holgerson. Fritz brings in 13 upperclassmen from the transfer portal, so it should be interesting. An entire 6 new defensive backs, so might be a good idea to throw on those Cougars. So I'm saying Houston's gonna win 3 games. So that's where I am with the Houston Cougars. Um, I'll move to 15. I've got Arizona Sun Devils at 3-9 as well. They're returning a little bit more. They're returning 11 from a team last year that went 3-9. Um, their QB Sam Levitt is a freshman, so they're ranking him 15 out of 16 in the conference. Strength of schedule a little bit tougher, actually pretty tough for this conference. They're 27th in the nation, so they're going to have a tough road to hoe. They lost Jaden Rashada to Georgia, but we won't talk about him. But Sam Levitt's a good get from Michigan State. They got an offense that they can build around him, and they've got the well-traveled and everyone's favorite Jeff Sims as a backup. So the turnover machine, Jeff Sims, is their backup QB. Receiving cores got hit pretty bad in the transfer portal. My Gators got Elijah Badger, the number one receiver from Arizona State, which is kind of cool. They lost their tight end Jalen Conyers to Texas Tech. So it's going to be a rough year for the Sun Devils and that team out there. I'm looking at 3 wins. Moving right along, I've got number 14. I've got a BYU Cougars. I'm saying they're 3-9 as well. They're returning 13 for a team that went 5-7. I think they're going to regress. QB Gary Bohannon, who's a senior. He's ranked 14 out of 16, not too hot. They do have a tough schedule for the Big 12 at 26th in the nation. So Bohannon came over from Baylor. He can't throw like Slovis for sure, in terms of getting the ball down the field, but he's respectable and should be able to, hit those medium range passes, I think. The Cougs got Jack Kelly, edge rusher from Weber State, had 10 sacks last year, so did pretty well. So that's a feather in a cap there on the defensive side of the ball. But it's going to be a rough year for our our BYU Cougars there at 3-9. Next up, I've got the Baylor Bears coming in at 13. 4-8 is what I'm looking at. They're returning 16 from a team that went 3-9 last year. QB Daquan Finn, they're ranking him 12 out of 16 in the Big 12, and pretty rough schedule at 27th in the nation. The Bears got Finn from Toledo. He did pretty well up there. He should fit that. The attack there at Baylor, who likes to throw the ball around a lot. He had 7,000 yards in his 3 seasons at Toledo, 63 touchdowns with 23 picks. So he does throw the ball around. They now have Texas State number 1 man Ashton Hawkins, who had 141 grabs and 1,700 yards and 11 scores last year, over the last 3 seasons at Texas State. So they pick up a good receiver there to help on the Baylor offense. But I still think they're only going to muster about 4 wins there at Baylor, and this will put the nail in the coffin for Mr. Dave Aranda, and he will be gone. All right, Mike, you're up, buddy.
Yeah, I tend to agree on some of these, so it won't be too in depth here. There is a theme here, folks, and you touched on it pretty much with all the bottom 4 that you talked about, and it's the schedule. A lot of these teams have a tough schedule this year, and unfortunately, that's kind of why they're going to have the schedule that they have and the record that they have. Bottom for me, Dave, is Arizona State. I got them at 2-10. So, talking about their schedule, right? Listen to some of these teams they got to face: Oklahoma State, UCF, Kansas State, Kansas, Utah, Mississippi State, and Texas Tech. That's 7 teams right there that
losses
probably are all going to be L's. That's 7 right there. So I think they're going to get 3 more. I think Kenny Dillingham I don't know, maybe they give him 1 more year, but yeah, he's going to have to do something pretty quickly. Rounding my next team, I got BYU. I'm with you at 3-9. Again, same sort of theme. It's the scheduling. They got to play Utah, Kansas, UCF, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, SMU. That's 6 games right there. Those could all be 6 losses. It's going to be a tough year for BYU. Baylor, I'm with you. I got them at 3-9 as well. Again, scheduling. Last 6 games of the year for Baylor: Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, TCU, West Virginia, Houston, Kansas. Again, 6 games right there. Could easily all be losses. There's a trend here, folks. I told you at the beginning. My bottom 4, though, is a little different because I got Iowa State rounding out my bottom 4 at 5-7. At 5-7. They got some guys coming back. Matt Campbell, we talked about it last year during the season, how he's gone from, this perennial potential head coach at, these big time programs when these vacancies have become available, and he didn't move. He didn't take those jobs. He stayed with Iowa State, and now he's, gone from one of those top targets that these teams are looking for to he might be fired after this year if they don't make something shake. He was on the hot seat last year to the point where fans were actually telling him he was on the hot seat as they're walking to the tunnel for halftime and at the end of the game, to which he responded in like getting in the fans' face. That was great. I think there may be a similar situation this year, and I think Iowa State's going to struggle. So I got them at 5-7. Defense will be good. I'm worried about the offense. Dave, back to you, sir.
All right. So we're looking at number 12. I've got the Cincinnati Bearcats. I've got them coming in at 4-8. They returned 11 starters from a team that went 3-9 last year. Their QB, Brendan Sorsby, sophomore, he is last in the league, 16 out of 16. Now, they do have a favorable schedule at 98th in the nation, so that's going to help them out a little bit. Coaching staff, they did load up some transfer portal folks. They do have, like I said, a much more manageable schedule. No Utah, no Oklahoma State, no Arizona, no BYU, no Kansas. So it should be a
Big
little bit
time.
easier, for sure. So and the QB comes over. He comes over from Indiana, but Indiana, right? So
Hey,
he
Michael
had
Penix. Michael Penix came from Indiana.
he did, but dude, he only had 1,600 yards. He had
Yeah,
15
he's not.
touchdowns,
He's not.
5
He's not
picks.
Michael Penix. Yeah.
He's not Michael Penix. So I think they're going to struggle for sure. I got them at 4 wins. Now, one of the things we talked about, and I heard some things on the radio today as I was listening, they were talking about schedules, and as these conferences get larger, there's going to be years where the schedule is quite favorable for a lot of teams, and it's very hit or miss in a lot of these situations. I mean, you've got situations even in this conference where you've got one team that's playing the 25th toughest schedule in the nation. You got another team that's playing the 100th schedule in the nation.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost crazy. So I don't know what's going to go on with that, but it's definitely noticeable at this point. So,
Well,
um,
you mentioned that, right? So I think the way that it's going, just kind of read between the lines a little bit. I think it's going to be, you look at last year in the college football playoff with Florida State, went undefeated and got left
yeah,
out of that top
yeah,
four, right? Obviously, it's expanding to 12 teams now. So, that's probably not going to happen. But I think we are very close to seeing teams with 3 losses, even 4 losses, potentially making the college football playoff just based off of schedule. Like,
oh yeah,
look at
yeah,
your team, Florida, for
yeah.
example.
If they
If
were, yeah,
somehow if
exactly,
somehow
yeah,
Florida wins,
struck by lightning, yeah,
nine games this year, with the schedule that they have, I mean,
yeah,
the amount of top 25 matchups that would be, and the wins, the big time wins, the quality wins, and quality losses that Florida would have, arguably, you know,
yeah,
they potentially could get in there at 10 or 11,
yeah.
at a 9-3 with this schedule. So it's going to be interesting. I think that's also going to take shape here over these first like 2 or 3 years now that it's switched to 12. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that is what is ultimately going to decide these future conference realignments, where Florida State, North Carolina, Miami, Clemson could be looking at an SEC or a Big 12 or a Big 10 move, because based off of that schedule and based off of those rankings, you want to play these guys who are the AP are going to throw into the top 25 and give you those early rankings, um, because obviously you have a better chance of moving up and moving down less if you're playing high quality opponents week in and week out. So
Yep, yep, and
I
and
think
and yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
so. It'll be
And
interesting.
it is. I mean, it's just everything's crazy now, and I just wonder. I just wonder: is it going to be a roller coaster, or will it level out in terms of the strength of schedule? So,
Yeah.
um, it is gonna be interesting. I mean, things are changing on the fly for sure. So.
Yep.
All right, let me run at number 11 for for the Big 12 here. I'm going to go with Neon Dion, and take the Colorado Buffaloes. I think they're going to have the same record they had last year, 4-8. They're returning 9 from last year. Obviously, they're going to have the best quarterback in the league at Shedeur Sanders, but um, strength of schedule 43rd, which is about average. Um, Actually, moving over the Big 12 from the Pac 12, I think that they've got a little bit easier schedule in the fact that they're not playing Oregon and a tough Washington State team. But it's still going to be pretty rough on that team, in my opinion. They do have Pat Shermer coming in as OC, who's going to be I think he'll add some stability to the offense. But here's my projection on Colorado Buffaloes. Besides the fact they're only going to get 4 wins, I think Dion will be out after this year. So don't know where, don't
Do you
know
think?
how, don't know why.
I was gonna say, do you on his own accord or?
Yes, on his own accord,
Okay.
he'll be out this year. It doesn't. I mean,
Okay.
if he wins 4-3, they're not going to get rid of him. But I think he will leave on his own accord this year for could be a variety of reasons. One, which I told you last year, I think he was just in it for his kids. And
Right.
two, maybe a job hits him in the face. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, I got number 10. I've got TCU Horned Frogs coming in at 5-7. They return 11 from a team that went 5-7 last year. QB Josh Hoover's a sophomore. They're ranking him 11 out of 15 in the conference. Strength of schedule a little bit easier at 77th in the nation. They got a receiver coming over from Boise State, 19 yards a catch. His name's Eric McAllister. He's had 19 yards a catch for the last 2 seasons, so I think he'll fit in well as a receiver for TCU. We know how that offense is. And their top transfer came in on the defensive side of the ball, which we used to think that TCU had a defense, but they got a guy named Caleb Arams, or he's coming in 92 tackles as the top linebacker coming in. So I'm thinking they're at 5 wins for the Horned Frogs. My last one in this section is going to be UCF. And I think they're going to be at 6-6. They're returning 9 from a team that went 6-7 last year. So I'm projecting they're about the same thing. They do bring in KJ Jefferson, but and they're saying he's the 5th best out of 16 quarterbacks in the conference. Here's one thing that we talked about earlier. Their strength of schedule, Mike, 116th in the nation. Super damn easy. I mean, super easy. The offense was 4th in the nation last year in third down coverage, 4th in the nation in rushing, 8th in total offense. And the running game wasn't even dominant. So they get the running game going. They've got a chance at doing okay. Obviously, that's one of the reasons they're bringing in Jefferson. But he threw for 1,600 yards, 17 touchdowns over the last 3 seasons. 65% is his accuracy over 3 seasons. I mean, last year he couldn't hit the broadside of the barn. So I just don't feel good about. I would not have ranked him the 5th best quarterback in this conference. I don't think much of him at all. Granted, he might do better in this offense, as we know how this one is the old Auburn offense, the Cam Newton offense. So we'll see how that goes. But I don't think much of it. I'm gonna give him 6 wins and leave it at that, Mike. What do you think?
I mean, again, we're pretty similar here. So, my next 4 all have the same record. I think they're all going to be 6-6. They're going to find a way to get bowl eligible. So I'm going to throw them up here, and we'll just run through them really quickly. TCU. Yeah, you mentioned it. Their defense is not the defense of old. Gary Patterson is no longer there. This is the Sonny Dykes, run and gun, chuck it system, air raid type style, and you can definitely see how, everybody. So, for example, when Sonny Dykes did what he did at TCU his first year there, right? Got to the national championship, you know, exceeded expectations by a mile. Everybody in the country was all looking at their coaches then at that rebuild, like, hey, look at what Sonny did. What's going on? Why can't you replicate that? It's not that easy, folks. And secondly, he did it with Patterson's kids. You can see now, like, after those Patterson kids are getting out of there, that record is slowly dropping a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see if Sonny Dykes can recruit and bring these guys through the transfer portal like he's trying to do, to kind of keep that momentum that they had a couple years back. I don't think it's going to be this year. I got them at 6-6. I think, again, they're going to find a way to get bowl eligible, but it's going to be a little bit of an uphill battle there for them. Houston, I have 6-6 as well. You mentioned it. Willie Fritz coming over from Tulane, their new head coach. Donovan Smith is a great quarterback for Houston. Based off of those two guys alone, I think they find a way to get bowl eligible, but it's going to be extremely tough. They do not have an easy schedule. They're going to have to upset some folks to get it done. But I think between those two, I think they'll get on the same page. They'll get the most out of their offense and their defense, and I think they'll find a way to get bowl eligible here. Cincinnati, 6-6. I went kind of back and forth with Cincinnati here. Cincinnati could have a great year and, maybe get 8 wins, and they could also finish with 3 wins. So it really is the same sort of situation as Houston. They're going to have to upset some folks. They're going to have to pull out some big-time games and some big-time situations. But I think they're able to do that. They'll find a way to get bowl eligible, get it done. Colorado, they're not going to be a 10-win team. They're not going to the playoff. Hate to say it. They're not contending for the Big 12 championship this year. They're going to have a better record than last year, for sure. They're going to get bowl eligible. I don't think they're going to have some guys playing in that bowl. But I think they find a way to get bowl eligible, and I'm with you. I think Dion might be on his way out because, especially for me, the way that I have them getting bowl eligible and the way I have them finishing the year, 4 losses in a row, I think that's going to be a little demoralizing for old primetime. So it'll be interesting to see for sure. It'll definitely make for good TV and good stuff for us to talk about during the season. But that's my next 4. That's my bottom 8. Dave, who is your next 4 going into the top 10 here now?
All right, so let's see. At number 8, I have the Texas Tech Red Raiders. I've got them at 8-4. They returned 9 starters from a team that went 7-6 last year. They really had issues with QB and injuries last year. Their quarterback is Bayron Morton. He's ranked 9th out of 16 in the Big 12, so kind of middle of the road guy. Strength of schedule is going to help them. 1-1-1, 111th on strength of schedule, so they got an easy one. So that's why I definitely think they'll move up to at least 8-4 this year. Wide receiver is going to be a strong point for them. They got a transfer combo. They've got Josh Kelly from Washington State, and they got Caleb Douglas out of Florida that I think is going to help out in the wide receiver ranks. Tight end, they've got J.R. Conyers out of Arizona State joining Mason Tharp. So pretty good wide receiver group there. Obviously, their big heavy hitter is Taj Brooks, running back. Ran for over 1,500 yards last year, 10 scores. He's going to be back there carrying that ball, which will make a huge difference. So I think Texas Tech's going to get 8 wins. They might get a little bit more with that crappy schedule that they've got for sure. So I've got them coming in at number 8. Number 7, I've got the West Virginia Mountaineers at 8-4. They returned 13 of their starters from a team that went 9-4 last year. Um, they've got quarterback senior Garrett Green, who's ranked 7th out of the 16 in the conference. Strength of schedule a little tougher here they're at 36th in the nation. Running back's going to be a hot spot for them. They got Jaheim White, who turned into a pretty good find for them last year as a freshman, finished with 847 yards, 4 scores. And they've also got 6'2", 238-pound DJ Donaldson, had 19 touchdowns last year. So obviously got a very formidable backfield there with West Virginia. So cornerback Aiden Garnes is the top transfer out of Duquesne. He had a couple of picks and 11 passes broken up last year. That's their transfer fine that should help them a little bit. But I've got the Mountaineers coming in at 8 wins. Coming in at number 6, which is a little bit different than where you had the Cyclones. I'm having a little bit more confidence in the Cyclones, and the reason I do, Mike, is they are returning 17 of their 22 starters from last year, which I think is going to help them. From a team that went 7-6 last year, they didn't suck, but they didn't play that well. But and they got a sophomore quarterback, Rocco Beach, who the conference is ranking 4th out of 16. So that gives me a little bit more confidence as well. And their strength of schedule, whereas it's not 100th in the nation, it is 63rd. So it gives them a little bit better chance there as well. So I've got Iowa State coming in at number 6 with an 8-4 record. And rounding out that last 8, I've got number 5, Arizona Wildcats. I've got them coming in at 9-3. They return 11 from that team last year that went 10-3. Quarterback, very respectable kid, Noah Fifita, sophomore. He came in last year and tore it up. He's ranked 3rd out of 16 in the conference. So a very impressive kid. I think the offense is going to be respectable, but the defense is going to have issues this year. Strength of schedule is going to be quite helpful for Arizona at 112th in the nation, which is going to be very easy for them. So I've got the Wildcats coming in with 9 wins at number 5. Mike, what say you, sir?
Yep. Again, pretty much right there with you. So my my bottom team in this next 4 is going to be UCF. I got them at 8-4. I think Gus Malzahn's going to be able to get the best out of KJ Jefferson. I'm really looking forward to seeing how they use him in that offense. I think it's going to be very Cam Newton-like. And something to note with UCF's schedule, very, very favorable schedule. You mentioned that. If they get by your Gators somehow with a win, I mean, they have the potential to run the table. That could really set them up. I think it's like week 5 or 6 for them at that point that they could be undefeated, go into the swamp, beat the Gators. I mean, UCF has a real potential to get into the playoffs this year. So I look forward to seeing how they do for sure. But I have them at 8-4. Arizona, I have next at 8-4. They got a new head coach coming in from San Jose State, Jed Fish. Like we mentioned in previous shows when we were talking about the Big Ten, is now Washington's head coach. Something of note for Arizona, they are replacing their top 3 running backs from the 2023 season. They are all gone. They got a guy coming in from New Mexico who's expected to start a transfer. So it'll be interesting to see how that offense does, especially without their leader, Jed Fish. I mean, that guy's an offensive mastermind. So I have Arizona at 8-4. I think they got a couple of tough games this year that they're going to have to get by, like Kansas State, West Virginia, Illinois, Colorado. So it'll be interesting to see for sure. But I think they get bowl eligible again and kind of get some some experience moving on to the next season. Next, I got Kansas at 9-3. Kansas has Jalen Daniels coming back. I think that's big time for that offense. They lost their backup Bean, who came up big time for them over the last 2 seasons when Jalen Daniels has gone down with injury. He is now transferred out. But they got Daniels back. They got Devin Neal back, their stud running back. They are going to make a move this year for the Big 12. I think they're going to win some big time games. I think they're going to show up in some big time situations. Something to note for Kansas, though, they are going through some renovations at their stadium this year. So no home games are going to be played at Kansas's home stadium. They are splitting their games up with the Kansas City soccer team. They're playing 2 games there against Lindenwood in week 1, and then in week 3 they're playing UNLV at the soccer stadium. Their other home games will be played in Arrowhead Stadium, where the Chiefs play. So something to note there. They don't have any true home games this year per se for Kansas. They are going to be playing at neutral sites.
So Mike, what did you have them coming in at? What was the record you had for Kansas?
For Kansas, I got 9-3. I think their
Okay.
losses are going to be
Okay.
at West Virginia, TCU. They're going to have at home, but it's at Arrowhead. I think they may stumble there, and then they got at Kansas State. Kansas State will be coming off of a bye game, playing them. So I think that one is going to be one that they struggle with as well. But I think Kansas is going to have some success offensively. I think it's going to come down to their defense and how their defense does. And then last but not least, to round out at number 5, I have West Virginia here. West Virginia is got them at 9-3. They got experience on the O line. That's one of the biggest things for me that I look for in the team coming back, and that chemistry on the offense is O line. They got all upperclassmen coming back for West Virginia. They play Oklahoma State this year off of a bye week, which is going to be a huge matchup for them. If they end up beating Oklahoma State, they have a chance to be 6-0, top 15 going into a matchup against Kansas State at home. It would be their homecoming game as well. West Virginia, I think, shocked some people. I actually have West Virginia beating Penn State. We talked about it in the Big Ten show, but I actually have West Virginia upsetting them week 1. I think West Virginia is poised for a big surprise year to a lot of folks. So West Virginia 9-3, 9-3. Gator Dave, what say you on the next one, sir?
All right. So let's start at number 4 with Kansas. So you talked a lot about Kansas and the fact that they were, playing home games away. I'm thinking here. I've got Kansas coming in at 4th, but I've got them 10-2. Okay. So what is interesting? You know how far it is from Lawrence, Kansas to Arrowhead Stadium?
No, I do not.
37 minutes.
That's a good
38
little
miles.
drive. It's a good little drive.
37 minutes, 38 miles. I mean, and think if the Kansas fans, the Kansas City Chiefs fans are behind Kansas, how that could have an effect. But needless to say, I still have them at 10-2. They returned 13 from a team that went 9-4. QB Jalen Daniels Jr. stud. The experts have him ranked 8 out of 16, but dude could be 1, 2, or 3 out of 16 easy. And then you talked about Devin Neal running back. I have their losses, Mike. Mark this down. I have their losses at Kansas State and at West Virginia. I'm winning.
All right, hey, I'm with you.
Other 10
I'm with you on those two.
Now,
I'm with you on those
here's
two.
the key. Here's the key, Mike.
Give it to me.
125th strength of schedule in the nation. Oh my God, dude! I mean,
it's big time.
I'm telling you, this is so typical Big 12. These next 4 teams, in my opinion, are safe bets. Any of them could win it. So, all right, let's keep rolling.
For sure.
I got them 10 wins, 10-2. Jayhawks at 4th. Now, next I have Kansas State. They returned 13 from a team that went 9-4. So our QB went up to OSU. Now they've got the QB they really want, and Avery Johnson is a sophomore. They've got him ranked second in the conference, which is pretty awesome. Strength of schedule for K-State is about average, 46 for this group. I have them losing to Okie State and Arizona. Okay. I know that's a little odd, maybe a little odd to you, but that's who I have them losing to, and I have them winning 10 games. All right. Final two. Amazing. At number 2, I have Oklahoma State Cowboys coming in at 11-1. Brian Eddings, if you're listening to this, VP Capstone. So they are returning, Mike, 20 of 21 starters from a team that went 10-4 last year.
Yep.
But, are you ready for this? But their quarterback is Alan Bowman. He ain't that great. Quite average, 10 out of 16 in the conference. Not a lot to write home to mom about. Strength of schedule about average, 46. Their only loss, Mike, to Utah. Their only loss. Cowboys win 11. Next up, number 1 in the Big 12, if you want to call it that, or a crapshoot. I have the Utah Utes coming in as the newbies, returning 14 from a team that only went 8-5 last year, Mike. They only went 8-5, and Gator Dave's saying they're going to go 11-1. You know why, Mike?
Why, Dave?
Because Mike, Cam Rising is back, and they also bring back their NFL tight end and their NFL running back, which was on my sheet but got deleted, but I know that for a fact. So they lost their top 3 offensive weapons, including their quarterback last year. 2 of them didn't even play all year. Those guys are back. Those are big reasons why they're going to do what they're going to do. And here's the other big reason, Mike. Strength of schedule, 115. Repeat, 115, 115th in the nation. Not very rough schedule. So Utah's loss, you're gonna look at me funny, but you'll know it's true. Utah's loss will be a slip up in the very last game of the year to a hated rival of ours, in-state, UCF. They're going to lose at UCF. They're going to think they got it made in the shade, and they're going to lose to that team. It's not going to matter, however. They're still going to go into the Big 12 championship game. But I've got Utah Utes 11-1. They only lose to UCF the last game of the year. So, boom. Back to you, Mike.
All right, Dave. Well, we got 3 of the last 4 the same, but little mixed around. So let's break it down. I actually got Texas Tech coming in at number 4 at 9-3. For me, the defense is going to be the deciding factor here for Texas Tech. Running back Taj Brooks is an absolute stud. He ran for over 1,500 yards last year. He's not going to be a problem. Quarterback, I don't think is going to be a problem either. He had 15 touchdowns, just 8 interceptions. I think with a full year under his belt, a little more experience, a little more confidence, a little more leadership under. I think he's going to be able to do some good things for that offense. But this is a young defense. That's why I say that the defense is going to be the deciding factor. They are young. The starting 11, I think, only has a couple of upperclassmen in it. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle some of these big-time games. But I got them at 9-3. Utah.
Hey, Mike, let me throw this out there. I didn't throw it out earlier, but they have a 29% blue chip ratio, which is like second or third in the Big 12. I mean, I think the best was Colorado.
Right.
Let me see. They're at like 30, 35th, 35%, and
Okay.
Texas Tech's at 29. So they got the squad for that conference. Just want to
Right,
throw
right,
that
right.
out. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a good tidbit. So number three, I got Utah at 10-2. So I too, Dave, I too have the Utes falling on Black Friday in the Boom House in Orlando, Florida. I too have Utah stumbling. I think the difference is for Utah, instead of them beating Oklahoma State earlier in the year, I think they lose that game, and then I
very
think they
possible.
lose. I think they
Very
lose that
possible.
last game of the year at UCF. So I got them at 10-2.
I
But
can
like you
see that.
said, Cam Rising is back. He was hurt all year last year. Everybody was talking about he was a potential Heisman guy, potential playoff team for Utah last year. So they have a huge, huge chip on their shoulder for this upcoming season. They are going to be on a mission, but it'll be interesting to see if they do have a loss, earlier on in the year, how that affects them, if they can bounce back from it, keep the momentum, stay focused on the goal, or if it'll, have them stumble a little bit. So I look forward to watching how Utah does. Also, I don't know if you saw this, but the Battle of the U, all right, is going to take place in Las Vegas. I think it's 2027. Utah and Miami have agreed to play as the opener of, I think, the 2027 season in Vegas. So
You guys are probably kicking out
interesting
of that
there.
one.
Interesting there. I hope so. Because it's the battle for the U. They do it this way, and it's stupid. It's come on, that looks so much more natural. Anyway, all right. Number two, I got Kansas State. Kansas State coming in at number two. I got him at 10-2. Quarterback Avery Johnson. You mentioned him, dual threat guy. Reminds me a lot of a young Tim Tebow. Definite Heisman contender. Depending on how Kansas State plays this year, I mean, this guy could put up insane numbers. Easily, Kansas State has a chance to go undefeated. They have a pretty favorable schedule. They're just going to have to play up to their standard and up to what they're capable of, which, unfortunately, kind of been Kansas State's downfall for a while now, ever since Bill Snyder left and, Chris Kleiman took over. He comes up in big games when he's a dog, but sometimes in these games that he's supposed to win by, 2, 3 touchdowns, Kansas State struggles. We'll see how it is this year. But I got him at 10-2. And then, like I said, Oklahoma State, they are my number one. I got them at 11-1. Extremely, extremely favorable schedule this year. They are extremely experienced. You mentioned it, Alan Bowman, the quarterback. He's in his 7th year of college football this year. They have an experienced O-line. They have an experienced defense. They have an experienced head coach who's also never quite gotten just over that little hump that he needs to really get Oklahoma State, in championship contention. I think this is the year that they probably do it. Everything's sort of lined up for them, rare for the taking. Same sort of thing with Kansas State. Can they win in the games that they're supposed to win and not just the games that they're not supposed to win and not just the games that they have at home? Can they go on these big time Big 12 road environments and get a dub and keep that momentum going, keep that consistency rolling? It'll be interesting to see. A lot of these Big 12 teams, that's kind of been their issue. They haven't been able to get to that next level, like TCU did a couple years ago, or like
Yep.
former members have done. Texas, Oklahoma, things of that nature. But they're gone now. They're
Yep.
gone. So
Yep.
Big 12's going to have to step up. Otherwise, they're going to be left behind in this conference,
Hey, so who do you have them
constantly
losing
shifting.
to? Utah, right?
No,
Who's
so
their one loss?
I actually have Oklahoma State stumbling. So I think Oklahoma State beats Utah.
Okay.
But I think the downside for Oklahoma State is that following week they're going to be at Kansas State in Manhattan,
Okay.
Kansas. And I think
Okay.
that's where they stumble. I think they're riding a little too high off of beating Utah the week prior, and it rolls over into that Kansas State game, and I think Avery Johnson punches them in the mouth. So that's where I have their stumbling. Um, yeah, and I think they win.
I
They
mean,
win out
I
from
mean,
there.
this is just your typical Big 12. I mean, there's
Yeah.
no doubt in my mind that we name the top 4 teams, and they could any one of those 4 could do it,
Yep.
and maybe roll into 5. I mean, maybe Arizona could do it.
Right.
Or like you said, maybe it's Texas Tech with a 111th,
Yeah.
strength of schedule. So,
Yep.
if you're a gambler, you know, and I really tootled around with this one, and I still might call you. But you know, one of these 5 or 6 teams you know, could be the one
Yeah.
that
For
that
sure.
comes up and wins.
For sure.
And
And
you just
we
don't know.
mentioned, what we mentioned at the beginning of the show too was, or maybe not at the beginning, but kind of, earlier on, we talked about how these records, you're looking at these teams at the top of ours right now. I had a 10-2 in the Big 12. I mean, 10-2 could get you into the playoffs this year. If this lines up the way that it does, I mean, granted, you know, there's going to be other schools on there too in the SEC and the Big Ten. They're going to have 10 wins. ACC is probably going to have 2 10-win teams this year.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be interesting to see how everything unfolds and how it all lines up, especially with conference games and championship games, how that affects it. Um, it After last year when we saw Florida State go undefeated and get left out again, we shouldn't ever see that again because it's
No,
expanding to
no.
12. But it's very telling for how the committee, I think, is going to be looking at this in the future. So it'll be these schedules. That Alabama has played in the past, or Georgia, where they just want to get undefeated and accept their roses and mosey on right in. It's going to change a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how that's a factor. And also on the flip side, if Georgia loses 2 games, are they going to play favoritism because they're
Well, you know what's going to
because they're
happen, Ryan.
Georgia, for
We'll
example?
talk. We can talk more as we go down to the 12. But I got my own
Yeah,
opinions about how I think it's gonna kind of fall out.
right.
I'll be honest with you. I think you're gonna have to. Obviously, we know like the winner of the Big 12 is gonna go in, but you know, in my opinion, in the Big 12, I'll tell you now, in the Big 12, I don't think you can have more than 2 losses to get in.
Agreed. I
In the
think
Big
well,
12 and the
100%,
ACC, same
because you
thing.
look at, just like we're looking at the top of the schedule, right? When we're talking about that, if you look at that bottom of the schedule, it's ugly. It's
Yeah,
or the bottom of the rankings. I mean, it's ugly down there. Those records are going to be low. They're not going to be good. So, that
yeah,
that comes into a factor. That's what we're talking about. Whereas the Big 10, we talked about them. There's a lot of teams that are going to be bowl eligible. There's a lot of teams that could potentially win that championship. There's definitely the teams that are at the top in terms of odds and, player caliber, player depth, whatever. Um, but there's a lot more parity in the Big Ten. There's a lot more parity in the ACC. But same thing, 9 wins in the ACC, even 10 wins, probably not going to get them in. Just to be real, they're
yeah.
looking at
You can't.
11 wins.
I think it's going to be the same thing. I think you can't. I think the. I think the Big 12
Yeah,
just this year only. This year only. Big 12, ACC,
yeah,
2 losses max to get in.
max. I mean,
Just this
max. And it's
this year.
tight. And it's
Yeah,
tight.
yeah. And
And
you
that's,
don't know how that's gonna, you
yeah.
know, how is that gonna translate as to who go. And I honestly think you're gonna need to go to the. You're gonna need to be
So do
in
you,
the play
well, let me,
in the conference championship.
well, it also, having said that, it's interesting to think about too where these teams are. So, look at, for the Big 12, for example, on your side, right? If you got a Utah team that's 11-1, and you got
Yeah,
an Oklahoma State team that's 11-1, and they rematch in the
yeah,
championship game,
yeah. I think
is
I
is,
I
is
think
one of them going to get left out at 11
I
and 2,
it,
or would
it
both of
really
them go
depends
in?
on
That's
how potent SEC and Big 12.
Yeah.
Me on the outside looking in now, I would say both go. I would say with that scenario, they
Right.
would both go in.
Yeah.
But not knowing how the SEC
Right.
and the Big Ten is going to come out,
Right.
that's how
Well, so
that's
that's
kind of
that
where we are.
that's basically where I'm at with it, right? So like is it just going to be is it going to turn into whoever's in the conference championship game at the end of the year, those two teams make it in. And then to make it a third, you're going to have to be, basically left out via tiebreaker. You're going to have the same record as those teams that was in the championship game. And really the only reason you got left out was some sort of points scored, matchup, whatever. Would you be able to sneak in at that point? Or are we looking at, and I think that you could, but I think 3 is probably the max that you're going to be looking at a conference to get in now moving forward. I don't
Oh,
think there's going to be
I
four
think the big
teams
I think
coming
the
out of a
SEC and the
conference.
Big Ten. I think the SEC and the Big Ten. That's all the scuttlebutt I'm hearing. SEC and Big Ten are going to are looking at just off numbers 4-4. Then
Yeah.
you go, and then let's say you say 2-2, and then somebody gets left out to get that group of 5 team in.
I think that's going to be hard. I think that's going to be hard with 11 spots. Because like you said, group of 5, they got 12, right? They got the 12 seed. So with 11 spots, if you give 4 to the SEC, 4 to the Big Ten, you're looking at 3 spots divided between an ACC champion, a Big 12 champion, and then a runner-up from one of them. I mean, it's definitely possible. Honestly,
That's
it
why
really is. Yeah,
why your
it is.
goal, yeah, that's that.
It is. That's possible.
It's hard. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. We
And
got more
that's
time to chat.
but that's when these conversations are gonna have to be had, because if you have a runner-up of a conference championship, which
Yep.
would probably be a 10-win team or more, you would think,
Yeah, and then you
and
look at
they
the
and
third.
they
What
get
about the
left
third
out.
team?
They
Yeah,
get
what
left
about the
out for the
third team?
fourth option, not the third
Yeah,
option, but the fourth option
yeah.
of a
What the
conference. I mean,
hell? Yeah,
that's when 12 isn't enough anymore. And that's
yeah.
when we're getting into the top
True that.
25 are going. And that's when we're getting like
Yeah,
into March
top
like
16, whatever.
which is going to be
Yeah,
madness. So
yeah, yeah.
I mean, man, I really hope they have a cap and it doesn't get to that, because otherwise
Yeah,
too, you look at conferences and how that's going to play
yeah.
out. I mean, it's going to be, how do you do that? What's the point of conferences anymore? You might as well eliminate them and have everybody play everybody or whoever they want, at that point. So, but in
NFL.
order to but to eliminate conferences, you're removing a lot of revenue. So it's
That's right.
all these moving pieces that, who knows? Who
I
knows?
think when we talk about the final 12, I think we ought to come in with our challenge of who, let's look at who our top teams were in each of the divisions. Each of the conferences as we would, but let's
Right.
kind of, let's say, based off of what we know
Put our put
now
our
before we played,
put our committee hat on.
yeah, before we played an ounce of football. It's kind of hard, but
I've
let's look
been
at it and put them out.
so I've tried to do that. I've tried to do that as we've gone, and we've talked about 3 out of the 4 major conferences.
Well, dude,
It's tough. It's tough.
well,
I mean, I
it
got like
is.
8 or 9, that I would put in now, and we haven't even talked SEC yet. So
Yep.
it's
Well,
going to be
in
interesting.
in order for me to give you some wagers for your trip, I had to go ahead and do SEC so that I could see where that laid
See, and
out,
that's why I'm
just so
planning
that
to do mine tomorrow.
just
On
so I
on
could
the
get a
plane ride. Yeah,
so I
I'm
could
with you.
have an
I'm with you.
idea,
I'm with you.
of where this thing comes out, because
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
and then you just kind of then we'll just take it and we'll just we'll see how it goes. It's going to be fun. I mean, I'm excited, and next week's our next week's the big SEC. We'll wrap up our Big Four next week, and then
Yep.
we'll move forward after that to to the 12 and to the 4 and to the Heisman. We'll do that the following week after that, but it should
Yep. And then the week
should
after
be
that, we
quite
got
fun.
games, Dave.
Yeah, we got games.
games.
We got 12. We got to go 12 teams, 12 games, 12 games every week.
It's almost
That's
here. It's
right.
almost
So
here.
we'll know. So just so everybody knows again, we were as good or better than the soothsayers out there. I can tell you that. So next week, SEC.
And for the record,
Yes,
we tied. We had the exact same record last year, so we
we
gotta
did.
we can't have that again this year. It didn't
We
sit right
can't.
with me this offseason.
Yeah, I know, especially with the bowls that you whooped my butt in. So
I had to get my get back. The
yeah,
regular season frustrated me. I had you. I climbed
I
my
know.
way back. You had such a big lead throughout the year, and I climbed my way back
Yeah,
only to tie.
yeah.
So you
It
held
is
on.
what it is. We'll see, but it was
Yeah.
good. We did good, and next week SEC. Man, it'd be nice to have some live folks on the chat. We'll do everything we can to be on time at 8 o'clock next week.
Yeah.
So we get some chat and some folks running smack on the SEC next week. So anything else for us, Mike?
No, no. I just want to remind everybody who's watching. Thank you again for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what you thought. If you loved it, if you hated it, jump in the comments below. Let us know. Like Dave said, join us. We're usually live each week, each Wednesday. We will be moving forward for the rest of the year throughout the college football season. So make sure to tune in, hit the little bell on our profile so you get the notifications sent to you so you don't miss anything. But yeah, it's going to be a fun year. I'm really looking forward to
It
it.
is. It is. It's very, very exciting. And obviously, most of you guys know or don't know, it's Miami Mike and Gator Dave in week 1 in the swamp together at the game, tailgating. It's gonna be lit for sure. So give me a go Gators. Mike, have a good evening, buddy.
Whatever, dude. SEC next week. Thanks for watching, everybody.
See you guys.